It's so important and so critical, JC, especially the work that you're doing. And the story you shared about Vera is so inspiring. I'm sure we could talk for an entire hour about the stories of the students whose lives you're touching and uplifting. Kind of on a similar theme, one story that we've been following closely here at Kaplan is the Supreme Court and the expected decision to end affirmative action in colleges admissions sometime in the spring following several oral arguments last October around two critical cases. So, in your perspective, what can schools do to prepare not to lose forward momentum in supporting diversity in all of academia, but especially in law and pre law pathway programs?
Well, universities have a very important responsibility. We have to provide continuity. We have to be forward thinkers. Sadly, the country is very divided today. This Supreme Court decision is going to have a very, very big impact, especially with schools that traditionally don't care too much about diversity, perhaps because they don't appreciate it. Perhaps they have a skewed view of diversity programs. And this is something that is going to impact a lot of folks. I really hope that those schools who really have an adverse relationship with the concept of creating an equal playing field and diversity stop for a second and try to separate themselves from the politics of it all. There are many universities who have done incredible work in diversifying their student body and creating that equal playing field. They have worked with programs like CLEO. And I know that Kaplan is at the forefront of working with a lot of these institutions as you see the students come through your programs. Those institutions are not the problem. They will continue providing those resources necessary so that students that come from where I come from have an equal opportunity at achieving success. I'm concerned about the contagion, the impact that the Supreme Court decision is going to have on folks across the country who don't value diversity, may have complete apathy towards the topic. I am concerned about the impact that will have. I want to make sure that we lay the foundation so that we can provide an opposing view on whatever comes out of the Supreme Court, in making sure that we separate, truth from fiction. Diversity is not about quotas. Diversity is not about setting aside numbers. As president and CEO, of CLEO, I traveled the country explaining that very important, very important. The LSAT is anonymous. The bar exam is anonymous. We are interested in creating an equal playing field so that people have an equal opportunity. I strongly believe that when institutions get a word from the Supreme Court this spring that may end diversity programs or the idea of affirmative action, whatever your definition of that is, I believe that if we tell our story as to what exactly was it that we're looking for and why diversity matters and why we should care about that, the fact that we have people in our country who have not had the opportunity, through no fault of their own, who have never had the opportunity to achieve success, and that institutions like universities come in and equal that playing field. And we could go through some serious examples where I think we could convince folks, change hearts and minds, whether that would be the scenario where I explain that we have folks that have been literally chained to the starting line of this race that we're all in our country, literally chained to the starting line. We have folks that couldn't afford the sneakers to come onto that track. We have folks that have been kept out of the racetrack entirely. And what we're saying is, let's create an opportunity where we can break the chains, help people afford those sneakers, teach them how to run so that we can create an equal race here. That's all we're asking for. I think we would change hearts and minds, and whatever the Supreme Court decision will come out, I hope that universities see the importance of what I'm saying here and continue working with Kaplan, with CLEO, with organizations like ours, so that they don't get lost in the politics of it all and want to take advantage of something just to appease Twitter and social media, which I feel is dividing our country. And this decision is going to play a very important role in how we either are going to unite or become further divided. I hope they give us an opportunity to make our case.
Yeah, it's interesting. I was at the AAC&U national meeting maybe about a month ago now, and there was a robust set of conversations about this. And, I had not initially focused on, I've been following the story, right, which has mainly been about, race and admissions, right? And, are we able to use race and admissions? Well, that certainly has, some potential wide-ranging implications. The only good news I kept falling back on, if there is any in that, is that if you just looked at the zip code from where people are applying, you could essentially get at some of these same, goals that we have in terms of asking about race and admissions, right? So I stepped back and I was like, okay, well, it wouldn't be a total disaster because you could use zip code as a proxy for this, which is sad, right? That in itself is a sad point, but colleges could find a way to large adjust there. What I didn't realize, though, is that if the decision is sweeping enough, it may also impact scholarships for underserved students or for students of a particular race, right? And so, now you start to think about, I mean, that would just be a whole other disaster. But I want to, related to this topic, right? Separate but related. There was a recent attempt, right, or it was reviewed by the American Bar Association and rejected. They rejected a proposal to let law schools become test optional with the LSAT. And this is not dead, right? But it may be revisited. I'm curious about your thoughts, right? Do you standardize tests help efforts to diversify law schools and thus the legal profession downstream, or are they harmful, or should we just not get worked up over this at all?
Well, Brandon and Kaitlin, I'm going to speak on this as JC Polanco, not as president and CEO of CLEO on this topic, because there's so many diverse views on this. And I want to make sure that I respect the different voices that we have among our team members. But as I'm concerned, as someone who's been in education for 23 years, I took the position that having the LSAT is important. I know that I was quoted in law.com as having joined almost every other law school dean in supporting keeping a standardized test. There's a reason why I believe that it does help with diversification, regardless of the debates that we're currently having. First, it allows for students to work towards a goal. And because of that, Kaplan has, as you know, they're at the forefront worldwide as to preparing students for this exam, right? CLEO also has a 55-year history of working with students to prepare them for standardized exams. We have been working with the LSEC on that level as well, making sure that we have the tools necessary to help our students succeed on that exam by helping them how to think to do well on that exam. I think that's important. Well, if we don't have a standardized method by which we can help our students and help them get the tools necessary to go toe-to-toe on this test, then we open ourselves to this whole applicant perspective, and that's very concerning because then we're looking at other exams that incorporate math. I have a law degree and an MBA. Math was my very worst subject in the world, right? Still is. It incorporates other aspects of reading comprehension that have been a big problem in communities where I come from. Jonathan Coles's book, Amazing Grace, was based entirely on where I grew up, the zip code on Jerome and Fordham Road. He focuses his attention on the kids from those areas. And if you read that book, you will see the incredible disparities between where those kids are from and where a lot of the other, where they're competing against, where kids are coming from places where instead of dodging drugs and gang members on their way to school, they're dodging butterflies, literally, right? Or maybe that fast school bus that didn't stop on time. We're talking about a world of difference. And our students that I'm talking about and focusing on are competing against those guys that were dodging butterflies. So it's important to know that a standardized test says, yeah, I understand that people could be different, but if they work towards a goal and they get the tools necessary, perhaps there could be one method by which they could compete in addition to looking at the whole applicant model. But if you don't do this, what would happen, and you look at just the whole applicant model, the student who had archery, golf, the summer outing, had all of those extracurricular activities, had the White House summer fellowship, the connection at the law firm, that student will have such an enormous advantage, in my opinion, speaking as JC Polanco, over the kid that could have done well on the LSAT, and if you took his grades into consideration, or perhaps that internship he had at the law firm, or something that'll give him a better shot. That's my position on it, and I stick to it because I think it's important. I hope that the ABA and law schools figure out a way that if you do take any other alternative position, you consider the fact that the whole applicant perspective is going to hurt a lot of students that didn't have the resources to do those other activities. Now, having said that, like Kaplan, CLEO will be prepared to do whatever it takes so that our students are able to achieve success. So if it is going to be a different standardized test, believe you me, at CLEO, we will be working towards making sure that our students are ready for whatever test comes our way.
You bring up a really great point, JC, around the tools to be successful on those standardized tests. And that's why we here at Kaplan are so passionate about our all access work, where we're working with institutions who are providing access to test prep, including the LSAT, to all of their students, including the ones who may have historically not been able to afford it on their own. And it just levels the playing field and brings everyone to the same race, all these themes that we've been talking about all along. But specifically when it comes to pipeline diversity in law school, it's often not good enough just to think about it at the undergraduate level. The pipeline really needs to begin in high school. And before that, you yourself mentioned you knew you wanted to be a lawyer in third grade. But not everyone is so lucky, especially students who might be first generation college or who may not be thinking in this way at such a young age. What do you think, in your opinion, the K-12 sector can do to support this and other sectors to support career pathways, especially in the law profession, but really thinking about it from those early days and creating visibility?
So interesting. There's so many incredible organizations across the country that are thinking like you. Think about this. I'm a judge at the Center for Civic Education. There we have students from across the country that meet in Virginia yearly to compete against each other on social studies issues. And they have these debates that happen where they're debating constitutional issues on immigration, for example, on free speech. And you have the teachers and students working all year long on a topic of the law, of students that are interested in social studies, interested in government. This is where you get most of your future attorneys, as you probably well know, and they get to compete. So we have programs like the Center for Civic Education. There is street law, which I participated in high school, where we teach students about the law. We also help them. I led the mock trial and moot court competitions in the high school level. So exciting to see students participate in this. Those are the students that stick through it and want to become attorneys, and you're going to see them doing pre-law down the road. You're right, Kaitlin. There's incredible opportunities K through 12. CLEO realizes this, and we were fortunate enough to have applied to the Department of Justice, and we got a program called CLICS, where we work with high school students from neighborhoods like the ones I've described, who need mentorship, who are good guys and good ladies that want to make a difference in their communities, but don't have the tools or the know-how. CLICS offers them an opportunity to develop relationships with mentors, and to participate in internships, to go to courtrooms for those cases that they can participate in, to see attorneys in action, to meet attorneys, to work with attorneys. And what happens is that when you get students early on excited about the law, and to see that there's more than just the courtroom work, the fact that you can be a sports agent excites them when we introduce them to sports agents and tell them the kind of athletes they work with. The fact that you could be a musical agent and deal with recording artists. This is something they didn't know about the law. Perhaps they didn't know that you could get combined degrees like I could, right? That you can do different things within the law. That you could be that that attorney that works with children that have been victimized at ACS in New York City, for example, and that looking forward, you should be thinking about if you're interested in helping children that are in tough positions. Maybe you want to be that lawyer that is providing counsel to a family. You may want to be that JD MSW student. So those high school students are so important to get them on early, put them in the right track. Once they come to college, as you know, I had talked about it a little earlier, we have an entire pipeline at CLEO where we work with each individual year from freshman, sophomore, junior year especially. We're holding a program in Houston this weekend coming up where we're meeting with students from all over the country live, and they're going to go to their specific seminars where they're working with attorneys and law professors and beginning the process of getting ready for the LSAT exam and to start thinking and writing and reading like attorneys. True pipelines remember that the dream of being attorneys is not something that just happens in senior year in college. This is something that a lot of young folks have inside their soul. They feel it. They want to make a difference in their communities, whether it's what they saw with the George Floyd movement across the country a couple of years ago, whether it's what they see currently coming out of some parts of our country where academic programs are coming under attack. They feel it early and they want to make a difference. And what I tell students like that, especially at the high school level, is, well, there's one profession where you could really make a difference. And what you notice is that it's the legal profession that is at the forefront of many of these debates. And it's a great time to get people involved. So we have a lot of programs out there already. I know Kaplan has many. CLEO also has working on it. It's great when we come together like Voltron. I'm aging myself. This cartoon robot made up of lions that would come together and make a giant robot. When you have Kaplan, CLEO, the Center for Civic Education, and so many other organizations across the country working towards an end, good things happen. And that's what we're seeing, especially at the K through 12 level.
Yeah, that's awesome, JC. This has been so much fun, and feeling your energy even through this virtual, paradigm here. grateful to have you on. Thank you from a lot of people for the work that you're doing. I'm sure you're going to continue to be in a place where you can make huge impact. And your point about I was involved in a big study years ago with Google when I was at Gallup, trying to look at why underrepresented minorities were less likely to get into fields like coding and STEM fields in general and law. And that. And the simple finding was it goes to about middle school, and you got a middle schooler who can't see it, and they don't think they can be it. Right. And it's just so, the role that mentors play, the role that pipeline programs play, is just, it is incalculable. And anyway, you are one of those super mentors, and we are grateful for you. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you.
Kaitlin, great teamwork today. And we'll look forward to getting this posted and having a lot of other folks have an opportunity to engage with the conversation. So thank you very much, JC.
Thank you so much for this great opportunity. Best of luck, and I can't wait to see more episodes.